Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the fourth episode of Toaster Talk on the Toast Network. Hopefully, you had a chance to watch Suraj with our cricket show just a few hours back on the ongoing T20 World Cup and all the excitement around that. If you missed that, do watch it after you're done with the show. And also happy Diwali to all of you. With that, there are a lot of fireworks that happen in India, good or bad. There will be a lot of fireworks happening in Mexico tonight, and we are going to be talking about it with this great set of panelists that we have with us. And I'm going to ask each one of them to introduce themselves. We'll start off with Twinkle.
Yeah. So hi, my name's Twinkle. I work in the fintech industry in Bangalore, and I started watching F1, I guess, 10 years back when F1 really started racing in India. I've been an ardent Mercedes fan since then. There's no saying that I was not a Vettel fan because, of course, it was all about Vettel back then. But I have been an ardent Mercedes fan for the last 10 years or so. So yeah, that's pretty much about me.
I guess the other fun fact is if Twinkle was in Europe, she'd be daughter of a very famous F1 driver.
Well, we can't really say about the famous part.
Well, if wishes are horses, we should go ahead with that.
Yeah.
Next up, we have someone on our panel who's probably the closest to the F1 or the automobile industry. Glad to have you here, Naren. You're on mute.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. But yes, cars, automobiles has been very close since my childhood days. I've been so much into cars that in my childhood I even started off building my own car company. Didn't happen though. At least I'm a fan of Formula One. I've been watching Formula One on and off since around 2010, same time as Twinkle. But I've been started to watch it very closely for the past 3 years. And as Twinkle said, I am a Vettel fan, but more so, I am also a Raikkonen fan, the Iceman, and nobody can be without being a Raikkonen fan, a Kimi Raikkonen fan. So that's that from my side.
And I guess as Vignesh had highlighted, if F1 cars had doors, Naren would probably be working on those. With that, introducing our final panelist for today, Vignesh. You'd like to introduce yourself?
I am Vignesh, and probably my closest connection with Formula One is I belong from a state where both the Indian Formula One drivers have originated, that is Tamil Nadu. I have started watching Formula One since my very young age, being from 2007. My father was a Shumi fan, and now being a person of color, I support Lewis Hamilton not only because of his stand against color, but also for his driving skills.
That is a wonderful statement to go by. And, for all the messaging that we see out there, Hamilton, if you're watching this show, hopefully you are creating a positive impact. With that, I know everyone's sort of geared up. I don't know how many of you are planning to stay up in the middle of the night to watch the race, but what are your thoughts about the race today? And we could probably start off with, the practice we saw. It was like Red Bull leading all the way. We all know that this is considered to be a Red Bull circuit. But if you look at the qualifying grid and you look at what the starting grid is going to look like today, we have a front row Mercedes lockout. I see a lot of smiles. So why don't you guys probably start off with maybe Twinkle on our end? Like, what do you think about today's race lineup and the qualifying?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting because I think the way the wings are made, I think Red Bull has wider wings, which give them more downforce, which makes them the more dominant cars in Mexico. And that's what we saw throughout the practice, like you mentioned as well. But qualifier was I think Voltaire, I don't know what he was on, but that was a fantastic lap. I don't think anybody's pulled a lap like that in Mexico. It'll be really interesting because I think from what I was reading, I think it's the first time Mercedes has had a front row lockout in Mexico since 2016, I believe. So yeah, I think it'll be fun to watch. Also, it's again, if you look at it, it's Bottas and Ham and Verstappen. So it's probably again going to be interesting with Hamilton and Verstappen. I anticipate a lot of drama. I anticipate a lot of chaos as well. So let's see how it turns up.
I'm sure Bottas probably had Red Bull before the race.
Yeah.
Or a porridge.
That too. Vignesh, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So for me, I would just thank Yuki Tsunoda. The reason because for the last two races, he did a brilliant job first in holding Hamilton, I believe on Turkey, and second was holding Valtteri Bottas in USA. Now these two things he did well. So finally he had in Mexico, and I believe he has done a good job in holding Red Bull away from pole. I would like to thank Yuki Tsunoda and the entire AlphaTauri management for helping Mercedes get a pole. Leaving that aside, the strategy is going to play out. Team orders will be taken, but more than that, I believe since the start-finish straight is a bit long in Mexico, Bottas would provide Hamilton the required slingshot for him to be propelled in the first.
Interesting. Before we get into conversations, I do also want to hear out Naren's initial thoughts.
Yeah, my thought would be like I would like to add what Vignesh said. The start-finish line is a bit longer. If you see, we have a similar start-finish straight in Monza, and in Monza during the first chicane, where last time we saw a brilliant duel between Verstappen and Hamilton ending up in a crash. I am not predicting that there will be crash, but there will be something of that duel happening in this particular straight. Considering that it is a pretty long straight, and you can go up to 320 kph in that specific straight. And number two is like Twinkle said, RB being a low rake car, it helps them with a lot of downforce during the entire race. But I was actually seeing the qualifying yesterday, and in the last turn, which is the last turn which leads to the start finish, I see that there were a lot of dirt that accumulated in the corner. I'm sure that they might clear it, but if the same situation continues to be tomorrow, I believe there will not be a race, but there will be a carnage of a lot of people during the first lap. During that specific corner, there might be some carnage. I'm expecting about that. If they clear it, then yeah, it's good for the cars. So that would be my thought.
Okay, basically everyone's expecting a lot of fireworks.
No, see, for me, Mexico resembles very closely with Russia. The car who is in the second position always get an advantage over the car which is in the pole, both in Russia and in Mexico. You see, I think so in the year 2019, I believe Hamilton was second or Bottas was second. I don't remember the year, but then one car gave the toe to another car to go in the front. And that's the same thing which happens if you that happening more often this week.
By the way, while we are at that, Vignesh, do you want to explain to our audience who missed out the qualifying why so much love for Tsunoda? Like what happened exactly in the Q3s to be specific? Or if anyone else wants to take a stab at that.
All right, I would like to go. So I was just seeing it is too late for us to even watch the qualifying because it's almost like 1:30, 2:30 in the morning for us to see. But from what I saw in the highlights of the qualifying, I saw that in the last few turns, I believe there was a lockup of the front tires for both Tsunoda and Perez, which led them to be on the grass, and they came out, and it actually made Verstappen to brake, so he had to completely collapse his lap. This is as much as I know from the qualifying. I believe I have to read through another few articles on what specifically happened. But this is not something new to Tsunoda. Like Vignesh said, Tsunoda is usually, I would say, has been the second for ensuring that many people have hatred towards him. But on the other hand, he's also trying to do as much as possible to ensure that he puts up a good pace.
So I think Perez got distracted with Yuki locking out and then going wide. Perez also got wide, and I think because of that, none of the Red Bulls had a single, forget purple sector, they didn't even have a single green sector. They're actually all on yellow sectors throughout. And well, I have one view on that as well. So I was looking at the lap that Max was pulling in his last effort. So I don't think he had the pace either. I mean, I don't think that had Perez and Yuki not been the cause for distraction, I don't think he would have been able to beat up the time that Bottas made anyway. So I don't think he had the pace in that lap. So yeah, I think it's a contrasting idea that I have as well, but I don't think it was just Yuki and Perez. I think Max also did not have the pace.
I believe Max was somewhere some 400s behind, or behind Hamilton in the last sector, the outlap that he was doing at the last minute.
Yeah, even the first sector that he had pulled, I think he was very. I don't think he had it. I don't think he was anywhere near Hamilton's first sector as well. And,
no, but then I saw that his all the three sectors were green, but not purple during this last. I believe, except for sector 2, Max was in yellow. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong.
Sector 2 was yellow.
Sector 1 and 3 were green. Just sector 2 was yellow for Max. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, basically, Tsunoda did lock up, and he locked up near the gravel. So there's a lot of dust in the air, which totally threw Perez off. And when Max was actually really close to Perez because he wanted to get the drift in, and he suddenly saw two cars going wild, and he was like, "What's happening?" And he expected a yellow flag to come out, which didn't. But to Twinkle's point, while it did screw up his lap, he wasn't doing any speed that would have probably got him to provisional pole.
Yeah.
As he said, I think he's expecting different tires today, right? So that should give them more. But what brings us to a very interesting point is we have a front row Mercedes, one person aiming for championship, one person aiming to prove that he was the best and he was just following team orders. What do you guys think about how Mercedes is going to play out this front row, and will team orders play a big role there?
Well, I think it really depends on whether or not Valtteri decides to take team orders. I mean, it's not always the case. And also, I don't think he is bound to take team orders. I mean, of course, it's just ethics now. But I mean, if he wishes to, maybe then team orders can be put into play. But then we've seen it. And of course, I'm not saying that it's always very, very full. I think with one of the past races as well, he was asked not to take away the fast from Lewis. He did it anyway. But I guess he had that pace. So I think it really depends on how it turns out in the first lap today. So I guess if he pulls out very far, I don't think he's going to stop down and let Hamilton through that way. So I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think he's going to go above and beyond with his team orders. Maybe if it's the bare minimum, he might just do it. But I think even if it's team orders, it really depends on whether or not they follow it.
That's very true. Vignesh, any thoughts on that?
See, considering Mercedes have both the cars on the front row, they don't have to actually implement team orders. they can play the switcheroo with the pit stops itself. So the strategy will then determine a call. Like pit Bottas first, blockade Verstappen, let Hamilton go first, let already ahead of Bottas. You don't have to implement team orders. You just use your strategy, and everything works in favor for the.
I'm sure Toto Wolff is listening to you right now, Vignesh. But that is a good way of them having to not stroke any egos and getting their job done.
Yeah. Also
What do you
interesting,
think?
yesterday, yes,
yeah.
sorry, just one quick thing that I noticed yesterday. So one thing I've noticed is that whenever Toto celebrates on camera, they usually don't win. And yesterday he did celebrate on camera, so I'm a little not excited about today's race.
That's an interesting insight. And yes, I was pretty surprised yesterday. Like he seemed elated, but I guess it does make sense to have
Yeah,
from a knockout
yeah.
on an RB, what is supposed to be an RB track.
Yeah. Vivek, just to interrupt, I hope Toto Wolff also is seeing this. So next race he doesn't get excited.
Clearly, the entire
More,
F1 fraternity should be watching this show. So if you guys are watching this, let everyone else.
yeah. No, but more than that, an interesting statistics is Mexico. The person who has got a pole has rarely got a win.
Yes.
Oh.
So you should know.
Yeah, which is why I was surprised when Toto was really happy. I was like, I'm sure he's looked at the other stats also that our pole winners haven't really done well, but then he's probably hoping that means Hamilton wins.
Yeah.
No, but the point is like, he would have told Hamilton, like, slow down. I don't want you on pole. I want Valtteri on pole so that we can win.
Conspiracy theories on. But before we wrap up this section, I do want to hear out from each one of you because it's the first time we are actually doing a pre-race show. Usually we do a post-race show and analyze. What are your predictions? And this is live on YouTube. I can't scrub it on the internet. We will discuss this in our next episode, which is actually next week. As we stick on to the continent and hit South America with Brazil. But what are your predictions for the top three from tonight's race?
I don't think Bottas is going to win. That's one prediction. The second prediction is I think Perez might crash today. I don't know how that's going to play out, but because it is his home race and he's never been in a competitive car before in his home race. So of course he's going to push, and he doesn't always do the right things when he's challenged too much. So I don't know if that might affect Red Bull's race today. Plus he has Verstappen in front of him, and I don't think that pairs out really well as well. Yeah, I think that might happen. That could happen. So that'll be interesting to watch, though. I'm sure there'll be a lot of going after that.
A lot of fireworks there. Naren, what do you think?
I believe that it will be Hamilton, Bottas, and Verstappen in that order specifically. I might be wrong tomorrow. All the predictions that I say tomorrow, there will be a duel between Verstappen and Hamilton, like in Monza, and they crash against each other. I hope that is not going to happen. The Twinkle said Perez is going to crash. I hope nobody crashes and it's a clean race throughout. But interestingly, just to know, in Q1, Stroll in the start finish race, he went off track and he broke his rear wing. Like I said, there's a lot of dirt across. If they clear it, yes, it's a good race. If not, I am betting on Bottas, Hamilton, and Perez, Verstappen in the same order. One more interesting thing I wanted to tell you is that I was seeing, as we discussed in the group, I was seeing the analysis, the track analysis posted by Nico Rosberg, and he says that the start finish straight is not flat, it is curved. So there will be a lot of bottoming for the people who are on the left-hand side of the track, which means 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 will have a bit of bottoming. So if they are adjusting to that, they might win. Whoever is on the left-hand side of the track.
Mhm.
Okay, Verstappen will be happy about that news. Bottas is leading anyway. And yeah, let's wrap up with Vignesh. What do you think about your predictions for tonight's race?
Okay. I'm going with bold predictions. My top three in any random order are Hamilton, Vettel, Alonso.
What?
No,
Alonso is starting 15th, isn't he?
I know. Now, the point why I put was probably because of turn one, and there has been a statistics that normally a home ground driver doesn't win in home ground, which is basically an Italian winning in an Italian or a Mexican winning in Mexico isn't possible. So I have ruled Perez out of it. Probably Bottas will crash into Max to give Hamilton a lead in the championship. So Bottas and Max have gone. So Hamilton is there. I I feel that okay, Vettel is in a comfortable starting position considering the car, and probably I believe that okay, he has a better engine performance than Stroll, so he will take it up. And Alonso, considering his recent racecraft, I want him to be in my top three.
Okay, I don't know about all your predictions, but one thing for sure, we are going to see a lot of fireworks in tonight's race. Clearly, looking at all the predictions that we have heard so far, and it will make for a very interesting race. Apart from the just at a micro level, at the race level itself, apart from the fact at a macro level, this is one of the closest championships that we have seen in recent years. And with every race, we are kind of seeing the pendulum swing. So it's going to make for very interesting. And since you guys spoke a lot about crashes, and one of the key role players that we've often seen in that scenario is the safety car. And for today's F fundamental session, which is where we talk about the fundamentals of F1 for any of our new fans onboarded to the F1 world, to get an idea of what is all the jargon and the technicalities around the discussions that we have. And today, we'd like to talk about safety cars. Anyone wants to start off with their understanding of safety cars and what are they and why are they there?
So I'll go first. A safety car is a car which drives slowly, because of which it gets a lot of complaints from other drivers like Hamilton telling let it go fast. It's going too slow. So that is a car which actually takes everything slowly, jams up the field, probably helps better in championship as we have seen in the recent past. Safety car restarts are crucial in winning the championship. And of course, till last year, it was one single manufacturer, which is Mercedes. Now you have two colors, red for Mercedes and green for Aston Martin. I don't know why they selected red. Probably they love to celebrate Ferrari, but yeah,
That their point being that's the only time Ferrari will be in the front row.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
Twinkle, if you will go ahead and like, why does the safety car come in?
Yeah, so usually a safety car will come into whenever either there's a yellow flag condition or whenever there's rain or anything that's unpredictable and that makes the track a little more unstable. That's usually where a safety car will come in. They'll come in to make sure that everyone's driving slow. You cannot overtake under safety car conditions. They make sure that there is adequate gap between all the cars. Yeah, so there's also another concept of a virtual safety car, which is essentially, I think it's a concept that was taken up from entertainment racing, actually, where they used to have virtual safety cars where a physical safety car was not put up on the track, but there was a track limit that was established, so you cannot go above that speed. So you're also maintaining that same distance from the other cars as well in a virtual safety condition. Virtual safety car condition, yeah.
Yep, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. And the virtual safety car was also introduced because we had an unfortunate incident. By the time the safety car could be deployed, we lost a racer who crashed into the crane that was pulling out already crashed out car. And that's where the virtual safety car came in. And as Twinkle rightly highlighted, that there are limits, lap limits, and from a timing perspective, which ensures that you're going at a certain speed. And they've actually introduced sector limits so that drivers are not trying to game it by speeding up all throughout the track and then slowing down towards the end so that the average is under the limits.
Right.
Do you guys know when safety cars were sort of introduced?
I read about this. I think it was introduced in 1973. I don't know how, under what situation, but I know that they were introduced in 1973. So maybe if anybody else has that trivia, they can, that'd be enlightening for all of us, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to check with Naren if he's aware of the 973 Canadian Grand Prix, where they introduced safety car for the first time. Also introduced a lot of chaos.
I'm not quite aware of that, but one thing that I actually understand from safety car and a virtual safety car, apart from the fact put by Twinkle and Vignesh, is that you should have a minimum, or your car should be within maximum of 10 car lengths beyond which you can't go. Like, for example, if you're the 20th car and if you slow down waiting for all the people to go, then you race. That's not how it works. You should be within 10 car limits, beyond which if you go, you'll be disqualified. So apart from that, if you see, safety car also helped in very, very crucial times, like last year when the safety cars usually will be at the back during lap one, at the last when in lap one. And this safety car was crucial in helping Roman Grosjean out of a fireball crash happened last year in the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. And this is something that I will never forget in my life, because that's when I understood the importance of safety car and the medical person inside this safety car.
Yep. So just to finish off on the 973 trivia, which was at the Canadian Grand Prix, the safety car driver came up in front of the wrong car.
Mm-hmm.
And half the pack was basically going slower because they were behind the safety car, while the rest of the cars were still speeding through. And it took them a couple of hours to get the actual winners of the race because all the timings had got queued up. So they decided not to do this for the next 20 years. And it's only in 1993 onwards that become a permanent fixture.
Wow.
Valid. And also, I believe that a safety car is not free from safety, as we have seen in the recent, not in the recent past, but in the past, we have seen drivers crashing into a safety car. And then you have to bring a medical car, which was last deployed, I believe, in Bahrain 2020 for Roman.
Yeah.
That was that. So if we have noticed the grid, the medical car or / the safety car will always be at the far end of the formation grid. After 20 cars, you will see that safety car is standing and one man comes between the 20 cars and the safety car to wave the green flag to indicate, yeah, the light should now go out.
And just in addition to that, right, all the F1 cars actually have a signaling device in them, which has the lights, which correlate the flags, so that the driver is aware within the car, within the cockpit itself, like if a yellow flag has been, pulled out, or if there's a green flag. So it's not just the flags that they're seeing outside, but they can see it within the cockpit itself. And if you guys watching us are wondering what flags are and what the different colors signify, I'd say please go back to our previous episode, because the panel have taken some time to discuss about what the flags are and what each one signifies. So hit our YouTube channel, go back to the previous episode number 3, and you get to know all about flags.
Also, a fun fact on safety car, that it was only in 2019, I believe, how to lap themselves in a safety car.
So we missed you for a bit, but we just heard like till 2019 there was instance of some overlapping.
So what I said was from 2019 was this rule introduced where the lapped cars can unlap themselves in a safety car. Else they had to be a part of the safety car queue. Now we always have this instruction, and also we are shown in the screens that car number so and so are allowed to move outside the safety car so that they can unlap themselves and come at the far end of the queue.
Here's another interesting trivia from 21. So the only Ferrari engine to have had a fastest lap this year is Mazepin, which was under a safety car condition. So
Yeah, well,
And
only
also
Mazepin can do that.
yeah, and also I believe last year in Formula F2, a driver after the race had actually he had crashed on the barrier just after the race was finished, and he was the winner. So a safety car came into the podium and he was alighted from the safety car, and that's probably one of the few instances where you can see a safety car winning the race.
that's interesting. One last trivia in the safety car world is since 2000, there's been this one guy who's been driving that safety car, except for I think 2 instances where he wasn't well.
Bird Mylander.
Yes. So he's probably led more laps than a lot of our F1 drivers
Yeah.
with his career. Done over 700 laps, which would roughly boil down to probably about 12 races. But yeah, he has nightmares of Hamilton telling him to speed up.
Yeah,
With
for
that,
that you can.
Sorry, Vignesh, I did cut you off, but was there something you want to share before we move to the next
I
section?
just said for that you can always go to Formula One channel and you can see their Grill the Grid with Bird Mylander, where he actually tells about how different drivers react to him being in the front.
Well, that's my homework for today. We'll check that out. With that, we're going to move into our last section for this episode, which is What the F1, right? Where we discuss on topics that could be controversial, but probably a lot more debatable. And for today, I'm not sure how many of you people know, but a few years back, actually more than a decade back, when Bahrain won the F1 track in 2004, Dubai came up with something called A1. The idea was that in F1, there's a lot of dependency. There's dependency on the car and the driver.
Mhm.
So A1 organizers said that, hey, we want this to be a true test of driving. So all the cars will be the same. And then the drivers race it out. They followed a format of countries. So you had India, you had Pakistan, apart from most of the other European countries. But taking that aside, clearly that format didn't blow up. Otherwise, all of us would have been talking about this, and this would probably have been the A1 show and not the F1 show. But I did want to get your thoughts that if F1 went down that route where we had all of them having the same cars, as F1 fans, what is your take on this? We could probably start off with Naren this time.
Okay, yeah, I was actually looking at A1 for some time, and I understood that A1 started in 2006, but abruptly ended in 2009. It was briefly for 4 years, and they had only during the winter time, which means once after the Formula One season is over, during the 3 months of rest period for the pre-testing of the cars, that was when we had A1. So there was a big article on why A1 Grand Prix was fall. But my understanding with respect to every cars having the same specification is that's when I believe we'll get to know the real talent of who the drivers are, how they perform. Like for example, not having anything against Mercedes or Hamilton. I know Twinkle will probably come and beat me. But if you see last year, we had George Russell replacing Hamilton, and he was impressive at the least. So he was for the first time in his entire F1 career, he was standing P2, and he raced from P2. I'm not sure if it's P2 or P1, but he was there from P2, and he did lap a few races, leading the race. So I would say if we're given the fact that we are giving the same thing, same kind of equipment to everything, that's when we'll know real talent on who comes where. So that's my take on it.
Interesting. What about you, Twinkle?
Yeah, I think one of the things is I think what makes drivers great is experience and making less mistakes, not going faster. Give them a rocket, they'll probably go faster. But I think that's not the point of F1. And I think I would absolutely be disappointed if we move to having the same cars because it is about engineering. A lot of this has, I mean, this is mostly just engineering. There's of course driver experience that comes into play with, why is Checo better at certain things? Why is Hamilton better at certain things? Because they're better at managing the tires and stuff like that. Although they all have the same tires, right? Um, so I don't agree with it because F1 has been responsible for so many, even with rocket fuel and stuff like that. They've been the pioneers in innovation. So if we stop that, if we have the same cars, I mean, nobody's going to be innovative if they don't have to compete with different car manufacturers. They're going to lose innovation. So I don't think I'll never be up for that.
Makes sense. And Vignesh?
Yeah, for me, if there are similar cars, as a Formula One fan, I'll miss some things. What? I'll just list it down. First is the six-wheel car, the car with the huge fan at the back.
That's true.
Now, these were the innovations of the past, and you're going to miss it. I'm not telling that, okay, because now the rules prohibit you from doing that, you cannot make such radical changes to the car
I mean,
which
it
is
kind of makes
competitive.
sense also. Yeah, I mean, it kind of makes sense also. I think back in the 90s, I think Williams made a very, very superior car, but they had to back down and they had to make a lot of changes back into their cars as well. But I think that makes sense. You can't have a extremely superior car compared to others, which is why we have budgeting now. I think budgeting is very critical here instead of having the same car because I think with experience, right? I mean, in the same car, none of the new drivers would ever win a race because there are people who have experience. So, they're always going to dominate the whole thing. There's never going to be a Max Verstappen in that case. So it really doesn't make much sense.
Valid.
I guess,
And also, I wanted to just,
sorry, Vignesh, go ahead.
yeah, I just wanted to have one counterpoint with that. If you want to have a series like A1, make F1 build the cars and not the team. Give the owners on Formula One, let them create 20 replicas of the same car, put the drivers in it. They have no idea of how the car is going to react, and then you will see true talents coming out of it.
That's a good idea, right? Per track, you have one type of car.
Interestingly, I also saw a meme saying if at the end of this season, if both Max and Hamilton are on a tie with the championship, I saw a meme where ask them to race in a Haas car, and then we'll prove who the champion is.
So the cars.
No, completely different car altogether. Not just swapping the cars.
It's interesting, but I guess the key point here is obviously in the current format that F1 has, a lot of creativity and innovations coming into play from an engineering perspective, given the constraints under which they have to work. And it's not an unlimited blank check that they have, that really pushes the frontiers in engineering, which probably is what we get to see in the outside world. But also that battle of engineering, strategy, the human driver is what adds to all the excitement around F1. And as they say, the man is the most complicated machine out there. So no matter how complicated your F1 car is, you just add that driver in and that just adds a lot more excitement into the whole mix.
Yeah.
With that, we are close to closing up. We have our list of predictions done. We have a race to look forward to. With that, I'm going to wish all of you a happy Diwali again for watching the show. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, help us go viral, hear us out. We would love to hear you out on your questions that you have with respect to fundamentals. Is there a topic you want us to talk about in WTF1 or in general? Once again, thanks a lot for our panelists today for taking their time out and sharing their lovely insights. And this is a lovely 30-minute segment where you get a crash course on everything F1 that's on top of everyone's mind. So Twinkle, Vignesh, Naren, thanks a lot once again. Enjoy the race and see you all next week for Brazil.
Thank you for having us, Vivek.
Thank
Bye,
you. You've been a
everyone. Thanks a
wonderful
lot.
host. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Happy Diwali. Bye.